Hi, everyone, and welcome to this episode of Google My Business Problems. Today, we are going to be talking about how to be more productive, especially when you're working with a team. My name is Brooke Borup with My Clone Solution, and I am here with our automation clone, Anna Cragen, and she is going to give her take on how to be more productive. Now, listen to this, folks, because she has productivity down to a science. I can't wait to hear what she's going to say. Anna, how can I be more productive?
Well, Brooke, this is a great question because my background is in psychology. So I have spent a lot of time thinking about and researching how our brain works. So then when I apply it to business and how to get things done in business, well, and in life in general, but business is what I like to think about a lot. I think, how can we work with our brain instead of against it to get things done faster, with less stress, and do a better job? So this is a question that I absolutely love to answer. So I'm going to give a few tips on how to be more productive, especially when you're working with a team, because I know that can add an extra layer of complexity on top of what you are already doing for your own tasks, managing other people and delegating. And a lot of people have a lot of anxiety about, like, well, is it going to take a lot of time to delegate to someone else, to explain to them what I need? How is that going to impact my own productivity, stuff like that. So here are some tips that will hopefully help you bypass a lot of that anxiety associated with working with a team and still feeling like you're being productive. So my first piece of advice, which works whether you have a team or not, is to break up every task into as small of a chunk as you can. So for instance, if you are going through a whole rebranding process and you're redoing your website and there's all of these moving parts and pieces and all of that kind of stuff that happens with it, the best thing to do is to break it up into those tasks and then delegate them to the team member or on your team who has the specific skill set to do that. So for instance, if you have to redo your branding and your graphics and your imagery, give that to a graphic designer. If you have content or copy that needs to be edited or replaced or formatted in a different way, give that to somebody who has good editing skills. If you need custom code or custom functionality for your site, give that to a developer. So that way, by breaking things down into manageable chunks, you also feel less overwhelmed by the project, but then you also know that the best person on your team is handling just the piece that they are best suited for. So that's kind of like the number one thing that I recommend for productivity, especially with a team. The second piece of that is, well, if you have broken up your task into, let's say 10 different pieces, how do you keep track of all of them and making sure that everybody kind of has access to the correct resources? And my biggest tip for that is to make sure that all of the communication for this project, let's say you're rebuilding your website, happens in one place where each team member can have access to all of the other team members and communicate on pieces that work together. So for instance, if somebody is creating new graphics for the website, well, then the social media person or whoever is responsible for running your networks and your profiles and doing all the branding for that, they need to be talking to each other and not talking through you, ideally. Right? You want them to be able to have access to all of the things that the other person has made so they can work together as a team, as intended, right? So my biggest tip is to really make sure that whatever app or software or tool that you're using for team communication, it gives team members direct access to each other to ask each other questions, because that also lessens the workload for you, because you're not spending all of your time answering the same question for multiple different people in multiple different ways. So that's the other tip. And then the third tip that I have is to really dedicate some hour blocks or maybe 2-hour blocks at a time for you to focus on just the work that you need to do, instead of managing your team or answering questions or anything like that. So they can be as big or as small as you want. They can be 30-minute blocks, they can be an hour and a half blocks, they can be 4-hour blocks. It just depends on how you work best and how often your team needs you. So setting up those blocks for dedicated work will really make you more productive, because you are not being distracted by something else. You're not being distracted by questions coming in. During your work block, you should not be looking at your email, or you should silence your phone notifications and all of that, just so you can have that brain space to be productive in your work. Because then if you don't, if you are constantly being pulled away, your brain is switching between many different tasks, and that incurs a cognitive cost. You get tired faster, you get lost on what you are doing next, you have to start over a lot of times, you have to backtrack. It's just not as efficient as it could be if 100% of your focus was on this task for the next 45 minutes. 45 minutes blocks are great. That's what I personally use when I am working on creating sales funnels or all of the other fun stuff that I do with Brooke. And that helps me really get into the project and make sure that all of the pieces are working together as needed, instead of getting distracted by a question or a call or anything like that. That kind of throws me off my game. And my last tip kind of goes hand in hand with that. So if I have a dedicated block for working on a sales funnel, for instance, I also want to have a dedicated time to do all of those tasks that my brain keeps interrupting me with, because not all distractions are coming from other people or the environment. A lot of the times the distractions come from ourselves, because our brain, when you're in your business and you're working and you're thinking about all of the pieces that work together, your brain is going to come up with tasks for you to do. It's like, oh, I need to remember to do my accounting because I haven't done it this week yet. Or, oh, I have to, answer this question from this person. Or, oh, I need to make sure that I buy enough paper for the printer this week. Whatever it may be, whatever that kind of administrative task is that will pull you away from that, you need to make sure that you have dedicated time to take care of those things. Because if you're only focusing on your work, then all of those administrative things are going to cause you anxiety because they're going to be in the back of your head. So having dedicated time for work and having dedicated time for all of the categories of other tasks that you need to do for your business is probably my favorite and biggest productivity tip that's going to help you keep your sanity, really, because that's what it's all about as a business owner, right? Is keeping your sanity when you have other people on your team, where you have your own tasks. And yeah, so those are my tips, my best tips for being productive, especially when working with a team.
Thank you so much, Anna. And I agree with all of those. And I've been in all of those situations. As a matter of fact, I think the last email I sent you was something like, I needed to take the day off just to be sane. Or I needed to get out of the office just to stay sane. So it happens, and it happens to all of us. We completely understand. We're all business owners here. And especially like if you don't have a team, because a lot of the people that are going to be watching this don't, my number one tip, and it's not just because this is the business that we're in. The only reason that I'm in the business that I'm in is because people need it, right? Like I find a need and I fill it, and that's where we're at, and that's why we evolve. But if you say, I need to rebrand, or I need to redo my website, or whatever that is, using the example that Anna was using for this, if you don't know what that has to be, right? If you don't know what your website has to look like in order for Google to like it, and if you don't know how, social media works, and so how do I know what to put things out? You, my dear business folks, cannot be your own project manager. Okay, I'm telling you this right now, because it's like the blind leading the sighted. Right? So if you hire a graphic designer, and you hire a copywriter, and you hire a web person, and you hire a developer, you hire a social media person, and you actually have the foresight to actually bring them all together as a team where they can all have their superpowers and you're just kind of the super leader, you have to be able to give them direction. And if you cannot give them direction, they're going to fight, because all of them have their own idea as to what's best for you, and that may not be the same thing. Okay, so I've worked with business owners who had large teams of people that were running in all different directions and telling her different things. And guess what? Nothing ever got done because it was always a decision to make. And the decision always contradicted one of the plans for another team member. So if you're going to hire independent people that have specialties, make sure that you have a project manager that can handle all of those specialties and handle the communication around that. That is what I see as the number one problem as why clients come to MyClone when they get introduced to us. because we have all of these people. We also work with all of your people. If you need to have that mediator, I mean, it's not really that, because we're not all toddlers. But if you've worked in the business industry or with the public long enough, we're all toddlers, right? And toddlers have to be wrangled. So if you're not a kindergarten teacher, don't try, right? And let somebody like us do it, because that stress can come off and you have one point of contact. So if there's a question as to what's going to go on the homepage, that's talked about and disseminated, rather than, I talked to this person, talked to this person, talked to this person, talked to this person, and none of that actually happened. So please be productive, time block, know what you want, and then hire somebody that can help you manage the team so that it gets done for the big picture of your business. A lot of people say the word holistic, right? That's a new kitschy word that's happening. I have a holistic financial practice or a holistic wellness practice. Well, I'm saying you need to have a holistic business. So you need to have a plan for the entire business and every facet of it, so that every dollar you spend goes towards the holistic goal and not the goal of one piece. Because as we talk about, the pieces all go together. And if people don't know how to automate those pieces so that they talk, you're going to spend money you didn't need to spend. Simple as that. So that is it for this episode, because we went way too long on it. But be more productive, especially when working with a team. Make sure that you bring the right people to the team, and make sure that you know how to manage them. If you don't, find somebody who does. I am Brooke Borup with My Clone Solution. Anna Cragen was here and is our awesome automation specialist here at My Clone. And we are here to help you with all of these tasks that you think that you need to be more productive in, that you need to automate, that you need to delegate, and teaching you how to do that, because it is an amazing thing when you let it happen. Thank you so much for joining us on Google My Business Problems. We'll see you next week.